Welcome back to OpenLine. We are talking about medical debt. We are also talking about the TennCare proposal, the block grant proposal that we are kind of in limbo right now here in Tennessee. Michelle Johnson, the executive director of the Tennessee Justice Center, is here to discuss all of this with me. And we would love to hear from you as well. It is OpenLine, so it's your chance to ask questions and get advice. 615-737-PLUS. Just be a part of the conversation. I do want to get back to the medical debt issue that we've been talking about, and News Channel 5 has been really focused on in here. Are there resources in the area for folks who are dealing with this and truly struggling with this debt?
Yes, and thanks to News Channel 5 for paying off people's debt. Really exciting for people to learn that they basically can have their life back. What happens when you owe a debt is oftentimes people get something called a civil warrant, and it's very scary. People think, oh, I'm going to have to go to jail.
Sure.
They're basically telling them to go to General Sessions Court to see if they owe the money, and it is a project we're working on to make it more fair, make the notices more fair. If you don't owe the bill, we want people to be able to speak out, but what happens is the vast majority of those folks don't come to General Sessions Court, and then they owe interest and they owe attorney fees. So if you get a civil warrant, call the Justice Center. We're happy to help you. We want to make sure that you have the information you need to actually defend yourself, but oftentimes you don't have to pay the entire bill. Oftentimes ignoring it is not the best thing. You might want to offer to pay on a medical plan or to ask. Sometimes if you can write a letter laying out for the hospital your situation and why it's difficult for you to pay back that debt, they will write off they will often write off the bill. And so just not giving up in terms of pleading your case, and also, you know, to the extent that you can pay even a little bit, that might make a difference. But call the Justice Center, and we can put our number up, and you can call if you have a civil warrant and you want some help. We're trying to get a project together that will make those notices a little more fair.
How far down the line are you dealing with a certain debt to get a warrant about it?
Well, so it's just it's called a warrant, and it's really terrifying for people, but it isn't. You aren't far down the line. It's a way for the debt collection people to kind of bully regular Tennesseans, and so making sure that they go to that hearing with the ability to show whether or not they owe it. And sometimes, you know, my name is Johnson, sometimes they don't owe it, you know, it's just another Johnson. So making sure they come with the information they need to show whether or not they owe it. And if it's a surprise bill, you know, we've got to change the law about that. We have you shouldn't be paying out of network because somebody chose an anesthesiologist that wasn't in network because your hospital. You know, I mean, that is completely unfair, and I think sharing that story is also vitally important to changing the policy around that.
And speaking of being proactive, either when it's you've gotten. Let's start with this. If you know you have a big surgery coming up, something big is going to happen, what should the consumer/patient be doing ahead of that to avoid these surprises?
Well, you definitely want to make sure that you have health insurance if you can, and oftentimes you might be eligible for health insurance if you change jobs. You know, there's a window in which you can sign up for the Affordable Care Act coverage, you know, that might not feel like an open enrollment period, but because you just had a change in circumstance, we can help you get covered. If you do have coverage, you want to talk to your providers and see if they're in your network, and I would ask them, are there other providers they know that are going to be outside network? You don't want to have surgery if you have an option to have it at a place that contracts with a lot of out-of-network people who might bill you. So, and then also find out what the charity care policy is of your hospital. Hospitals, especially ones that are nonprofits, should have a policy that enables you to have a little bit of help paying bills. And healthcare is so expensive. You have to be a billionaire in order to, cover it. And so you want to make sure that if there are subsidies available at the hospital level, if they're nonprofit hospitals, they often will have subsidies, and you want to take advantage of those.
And that's what I'm saying. If you get that surprise bill, whatever reason you're surprised by it, where do you start? It's probably calling the hospital or calling the doctor's office to see, A, is there a payment plan, or B, is there a charitable organization or a charity way I can set this up and get some written off, right?
Well, and also the national media has been covering the surprise billing issue, and so definitely call our office because we can connect to the national media. And as I said, Senator Alexander is working to change that. So calling Senator Alexander and letting him know could be really important as well. I think sharing the stories, having the courage to share those stories, is the only way we're going to change the law to make our system better.
Beyond what's happening with TennCare right now, are there efforts just here locally, as in Tennessee, when it comes to medical debt issues or the surprise billing, those sorts of things that you think will help, that are positive?
Well, I think our project with respect to the General Sessions Court could be a positive thing. You know, making sure that people have notice of what they owe money for, so that they have the ability to show they don't owe it, is really vitally important. In terms of other efforts, there's a lot of charitable folks, you know, including NewsChannel 5, who are trying to buy that medical debt, which is important. But obviously, we need a system.
Sure.
We need to do something more than just, it feels in some ways like we're doing a little bit here and there, but we need a system that actually works for all of us, and right now it is not.
Yeah. Let's talk about medical debt. I was shocked when we first started this reporting that these debt companies buy the debt from the hospitals or the doctors group or whatever it be for pennies on the dollar. So if my bill is $200 that I have not paid, they may buy it for what? 20, 30 bucks, and then but still trying to collect that 200 from me.
Right, that's right. And if you try to bargain in the way that these charitable groups have said, like, let me give you $10,000 and buy, you know, $1 million worth of medical debt, oftentimes they won't do that. But it's worth a try. It's worth a try to reach out to them and say, listen, I'm happy to pay $50. That's what I owe. But I mean, I think it doesn't make any sense. The whole system is really broken, and I think the only thing for that is for people to find the courage to speak out and say what's wrong with it. We have a campaign that we're enrolling in the Justice Center called Sick of It. I mean, the fact is there's no one in this state that isn't sick of it, and this, you know, surprise billing is an example of it. These high premiums is an example of it. You know, basically never having financial peace of mind because, you know, you might have a loved one who has something unanticipated and they're out of town, or, you know, so join the Sick of It campaign and learn. I mean, I think that none of us feel particularly, you know, anxious to step out and tell our healthcare stories, but we need a massive change, and the only way that's going to happen is if healthcare voters, and there's a lot of them, speak out and stand up and expect their leaders to lead.
You mentioned high premiums, the part that, you know, when you work for a company that offers health insurance, that's the part that comes off your paycheck that you just pay in every 2 weeks or every month, however your paycheck is. And then you have these high deductible plans, which are really the commonplace now.
Right, high deductibles. Co-insurance.
Yes. How did we get here? It's just, I mean, you still feel lucky to have that option through your employer, but it is a huge chunk of your paycheck, more so than ever before, and it gets worse every year. That's
right. It gets worse every year, and if you get sick, God forbid, then there's not enough savings there to take that, and so you're basically in debt, and then that keeps you from doing the things that you need to do, or like having a vacation, you know, and that isn't right. And I think our citizens deserve better. So looking for folks to tell their stories, and, you know, to come together. I think that many leaders try to divide us, and so coming together and saying, like, this isn't a Republican issue, it's not a Democratic issue, this is an issue for all of us to have a healthcare system that at least is worthy of other industrialized nations. We are at the bottom of the nation. We went in the wrong direction on maternal mortality and infant mortality, life expectancy going in the wrong direction. Like, we can do better, we deserve better.
Yeah, something is clearly broken, but we don't seem to be really looking for the answer to fix it.
Or even if we're looking for it, we want to play political games instead. We keep getting distracted by hate. And it's like, I feel like the people in this state and really in the nation said with their vote, healthcare is the #1 issue. And so, like, how do we stay focused, not distracted by hate, and say we actually want a healthcare system that's worthy of our children?
Absolutely. Okay, we have to take another quick break. When we come back, I'm going to switch the topic once again back to that block grant, and we're really going to dive down into Medicaid. What is it? Who qualifies for it? What's the picture in our state? So stay with us. And again, we'd love your call, 615-737+.